That the vintage radio IG that you had is
Oh, yeah.
still kind of floating out there, is still active.
The original actually Radio Fam account was actually called Insta Radiogram. And it's still there only because I cannot get into the account. So if you go to Insta Radiogram, there's this what it used to look like. And it was originally just a meme page, but I was like, I'm not funny enough to make them. And at the time, people weren't making enough radio memes for me to keep it going. And not a lot of people really on Instagram, just to share their pictures. So, but I am actually glad that I could never get back into it because then now I can look at it and be like, oh my God, look at that thing I started.
I really wanted to do this, and thank you for adopting this idea because you have gone, what, 4 seasons now, 4 seasons into this podcast, and you get these radio people on and they talk about themselves, and you cut so much of you out of it. I feel like we miss you throughout this podcast. And so I wanted this podcast to be focused on you and where you came up, what you're doing, what you love about the business, what do you want to see change. I'm gonna get you to say the F word at least one time, throughout this. Shouldn't be too hard. We already got the wine going.
That's right.
Marie, welcome to your podcast.
Thanks for having me, but I'm having you. So it's kind of weird, but I love this.
What is the question that you've been dying to answer that nobody's asked you yet?
I guess maybe this just overall, me being somebody that's like, I guess, well, starting to become well known, or at least this brand. If somebody were to look at my resume, they'd be like, cool, she worked part-time promotions, a few radio stations. And I'm like a shy person. I just look at it myself like, look, guys, like if I can do this and get content out there and like people know who I am and I'm making these videos, like just think what you guys can do. Like, you guys like have influence and followers and listeners and all that stuff and like are trained for this. And I'm just like figuring it out and it's working. So like, so I think there's just like this magic that I feel like, yeah, maybe nobody's really like, hey, Marie, how can I get some of that magic that you were able to unlock, I guess? Or maybe people just don't see it yet. I don't know.
They see it. And I don't think they look at it as like, well, this person only worked part-time. I hope they look at it as this person has built something really unique and incredible and has brought positivity and connection to people at a time when they need connection the most, at a time people in the business need to connect with people in the business the most. And whether those people move out of the business or not, I've come to find that, you still stay in touch with those people that you really want to stay in touch with, and people that, may give you a different look at something from a management side or from a record label side. They may not necessarily be in day-to-day radio, but they can affect you in a positive way, and they can make you think differently about what you're doing in a positive way. And you're doing that with a lot of people because you're giving them such a great platform to tell their story and what they're doing and how they're trying to innovate and how to change. So, but we got to flash back though. You and I, we didn't cross paths in Seattle, but you were South Sound back in the day, and you were at the other country station. Tell us how you kind of got into that 1 million man march over on KKWF on the Wolf.
That's what made me, I think, fall in love with radio itself. Like people made fun of you for like listening to country music, at least like where I was, at least in Tacoma. So it wasn't like cool to listen to country. But this was like right where it started to become, so really like, it was like that top 40 kind of sound meshing with it. So like really that, the song that made me go, oh my gosh, like, what is this? Was actually that Kenny Chesney, Uncle Cracker, When the Sun Goes Down. I loved that song so much. And I didn't grow up on country music at all. So I kind of really just fell in love with it. And then I just fell in love with the brand. They were cool. All of a sudden it was like, just like a cool thing to like country. And it just had like a different vibe to it. And so the big thing is out there. I don't know if you remember, they were doing like the quest for 1 million listeners. And it was a big marketing campaign. And they made it sound like, people were actually there volunteering, like picking up phones. So you would have to call and say, hey, like I got my parents and my brother to start listening to The Wolf. So I'm going to pledge myself and those 3 people. So they go, okay, we're going to tally those 4 people down. And it was to get to 1 million listeners. And I thought that, I'm like, that's such a cool promotion. But at the time, like, I didn't know that this was all like theater of the mind. And I just thought that was so fun. So I wanted to be like a volunteer in the background. And what I had been doing while this thing was going on is I had a sign on my truck that said like, honk if you pledge to listen to 100.7 The Wolf. And it was like a handmade sign. And I would go drive around the Puget Sound with my windows rolled down and the Wolf turned up and people would honk, you know what I mean? I think just because I had a sign on my truck, and I would actually call the fucking radio station.
Yes.
And I would say, I got 3 honks today, and just kind of like act like a promotions person,
And you hit it right on the head. It was this top 40 bigger than life. It was this launch that nobody had ever seen. It was backed up by cash and billboards and rolling trucks and tractor trailers, and the thing was everywhere. It was something that, at least for the country format, it hadn't really been done or hadn't been seen on that level. And so you were
Oh.
really part of something dynamic that really to this day hasn't been replicated. Like that was a big, big launch.
Well, and the
Again,
promote and as a promotions person, that set the bar so high.
fast forward, you do some promotions in Seattle, and then you land in Denver.
Yeah, actually, first I went to Colorado Springs. My best friend actually lived out there, and so I spent the summer at the Wolf, and then when I visited in Colorado Springs, there was actually a brand new country station called Cat Country. So I was like, hey, I'm moving here. Let me. This is probably a great time. I'm sure they need promotions people. And I thought it was just going to be like a part-time job. Like they would just have like a few hours for me here and there. But they were like, actually, we can give you, 30 hours a week, just under that full time. So I was bringing a lot of those concepts from Seattle down. So like, we'd have to go like spray chalk, like paw prints all over, for the Wolf all over Seattle. So here I am in Colorado Springs, like, hey guys, we should do this for Cat Country with cat paws. Spent 4 years there kind of bouncing around between like the top 40 station and the classic rock station, a little bit of the sports station. And then I just needed like a change. And was basically applying everywhere else other than Denver, but I created a Facebook specifically to get noticed over social media. I wanted PDs to see that I could represent the station too, so when we'd be at an event, like I would say, hey, come down to Blondie's tonight. We're there from 7 to 9, giving away tickets to, as a post. So I had a whole separate page for that to get noticed. And I was applying everywhere but Denver. And then the program director at KYGO saw I was doing that, noticed me over social media and reached out. And then that's how I got the job there.
No, I love that you figured out a way to use social media to your advantage early. So like what year would that have been when you were doing Facebook
I
stuff?
think that was like 2010. Yeah.
Yeah,
End of
that was early.
2010. Yeah. Like I was on
Yeah.
LinkedIn back then too, super early.
A few years in Colorado Springs, lead you to Denver, and this is a big deal. Like you minimize this. Like I worked, in these places, and I only did. To me, having been, in places that have had big promotion staffs, like those promotion people are the essence and the core of that radio station. Most listeners don't get to meet talent every single day, but they get to meet the street team, they get to meet the promotions folks at concerts, they get to know their names, they get to know their stories. So it's incredibly important that you know what's going on, in your world and what's going on in the radio world. And then you're able to talk about this and convey it to a listener and get them excited about the station and get them excited to listen to these people that they maybe haven't had a chance to meet yet, to bring them into the family, so to speak. So a couple years in, you get up to Denver, and that was it a battle yet in Denver at the point that you got there with two country stations, or was it?
So the Wolf up here had started. That was like a Wilkes owned thing. And so I saw them, and they were kind of trying to do the same thing. They would do what we would do. Like show up across the street from where KYGO was. KYGO was such a powerhouse. And at the time, and I didn't realize that the Wolf out, it was just a small signal. It was kind of one of those things that once I got up here, I'm like, why does anybody go after KYGO unless you're a big, strong signal? I don't know why you would even try. So when they were kind of just fizzling out the Wolf by the time I got there. But then that's what I felt like, that because the competition wasn't there, that I felt like KYGO, we did just kind of sit there, because we were always just, nobody could really mess with us. So it's like, so there wasn't that same energy. I liked the Wolf of the energy and let's go try and take down KMPS, so I liked that.
Yeah, there were legendary stories in Seattle of the guy that was running that operation. He would pay people who were washing high-rise buildings to wear T-shirts. And so when they would go to that station, when they would go to KMPS or they go to the other stations in town, they'd be, burp, burp, burp. They could come up, on their little things, and they'd be wearing a Wolf shirt, like a bright green Wolf shirt, right outside the program director's office of the competition. It's just
he was all about those highlighter green. I was the highlighter green with the black on it. It would say like Wolf Pack on the back.
But you know what I love about this, Marie, and I think this is where your story kind of takes off in its own way. Like you were in this system of promotions, and it's almost carnival-like, and it's like bigger than life, and it's way overstated on the radio, and it was a really big deal. But you now fast forward to 2010 are using Facebook when people even in college are just figuring out like, oh, I can use this in college, and let alone people that it had been just opened up to the public at that time. You're starting to use this now as a social tool to get PD's attention. There probably are people that you connected with way back in the day on that you keep in touch with to this day, because that's pretty memorable.
So I didn't realize what was happening at the time. So unfortunately, I had deleted that second Facebook, and I'm really sad because I was kind of using it since a lot of radio people were not on LinkedIn. It was like that LinkedIn version of that. You know what I mean? So I could kind of connect with people. Now there are a handful of ones that on my personal Facebook that kind of trickled over. So I do have there's like a group of radio people that we've been friends on Facebook since around 2010 that I'd consider that. But it's funny you say that because I always kind of tell this story that I don't remember who it was, but when I was, connecting with people and doing that thing, that there was a guy who did respond. And I just remember that he was like an older gentleman, you know what I mean? Like it had to have been in management of some sort. And that he responded to me. And all he said to me was, I'm not accepting your friend request because you don't look like a real broadcaster. And I was like, what? I was like, first of all, I never said I was a broadcaster. And why didn't you just not accept it? Why did you have to send me the extra message? Fortunately, I don't remember who that was, but they're lucky to remember.
There were so many people like that back in the day that wouldn't give us young people on the up, that time of day. And it was always some excuse of like, you're not good enough, or just, do this and don't worry about anything else. Or I don't have time to teach you how to do any of that kind of stuff. Like, it's just unfortunate that even today that I still hear stories of, people that are like that create those like toxic environments and those bad places. And again, this is why I come back to what you built, because you're giving people that are in those environments, that work for those people that can't get out of those environments, kind of an outlet to go, oh, you know what? There is positivity. I can learn something from somebody. I can listen to this and hear a story and be motivated, inspired to go out and, keeping on and maybe, get up to the next job or get up to the next place or next thing that I want to do. You figured out the digital end of this deal really early. And this is where I give you credit, because again, you come from that Seattle playbook, and you could just be like totally a radio, promotions person, but you went digital, you went next level where everybody wasn't playing yet. At that point in time. So let's fast forward to the radio fam. When you started to put this idea together, what was your kind of your end game, or was this just kind of like, hey, this is a hobby for me?
Saw how people were personally monetizing it, like influencers and stuff, and I was like, wow, that's really cool. Why doesn't radio do that more? But I really wasn't thinking into radio. It was more like experimental. Like, could I grow some kind of account at KYGO? I had started their Instagram account, like started there early at like in 2012 in Seattle. The big push out there was, we want like the logo in your face, regardless. Like that was just kind of the basis of what everything was, the logo in your face. So that's just how I translated everything. So as everybody was on their phones, I was like, oh, here's another way to get our logo in people's face. So I was really big back then on like, they had the apps where you could, put a picture on top of a picture. So our logo was really easy because it was like a rectangle, so I would take that and put it on top of every photo that we put up. So that way that logo was just constantly there. And then, and I started to see how people were like engaging, but, I'd like reshare memes that were, country related, and kind of what pushed me to do something outside of radio. It's like I had my radio social media outlet through the Instagram. Nobody supported it. Like, not like they didn't support it, but it's like they didn't push it. They didn't promote it. It was just kind of like, yeah, Marie's doing Instagram, but it was cool to see that I was building something without, I used to be proud. I was like, look, like I remember when I got to like 1,985, and I was like, man, I'm doing this without any push on the radio station. This is really cool.
No, it is kind of sad to think about though, like back in that day, like there would be this new platform, and the program director or the marketing director or somebody would just be like, oh, hey, like, can you just give that to somebody over in promotions? Like, give it to one of the kids over in promotions. Like, they'll know what to do with it, and then just let them go with it. And there was that mentality, and then there was the mentality of like, we have this microphone, we don't need anything else to talk about our brand on. Like, if we have it, great, we'll check off the box because corporate asked us to do it, but that person in promotions is going to handle that. I remember when they did that with this new thing called Musical.ly that came out, and like 2017, 2018, like Musical.ly, like give it to a kid in the promotions, they'll figure it out and they'll do it right. And the turnover in those positions is pretty high, and it's like somebody would do it for a little while and then not get exactly what you talked about. They wouldn't get any love from the radio station on it, and then kind of get to a point to be like, what am I doing? Like, why am I doing this?
So remember when e-cards were like before the memes? So there was an e-card And on it, it said, I don't feel like doing anything today except Luke Bryan. I would do Luke Bryan. So I was telling you, highest engaging meme I've ever put up. People love that shit. They were tagging their friends for the first time. I was like, hell yeah. But of course, I get a text and told me that I should take it down because it's inappropriate.
No, come on. Okay. But I love the fact that when we were all trying to build Facebook pages in the wild, wild west of Facebook, you're already going, okay, this Instagram thing is going to be a thing. And sure enough, what happened? Like, Twitter was what it was, and it was one-way conversation, but you had Instagram, rocking, and then you had that in a great spot for them. When Instagram finally hit, they were way ahead of the game at that point, and didn't have to worry about building that from scratch, where everybody was kind of starting from scratch. So now, fast forward, you get into the Radio Fam, and you've built this community, and you're getting an opportunity to talk and really learn not only what these people's stories are, but you're able to really listen and pull some nuggets out of some of these conversations that make you personally better. Do you have a moment or two that you can point back to? And I realize you'll probably leave somebody out, and I don't want anybody to be like upset that they get left out. But do you have a moment that you kind of go back to where you're like, man, that's something that I took away and I started doing, or that it inspired me to do, something else?
Chris Cruz kind of saying, because I saw him out there telling people like, look, like if you'd wait till this is perfect, you're just never going to do it. Cause that was kind of my whole thing. I'm like, well, holy shit, I'm up with a bunch of audio professionals, video professionals. I'm not a talker, so I'm trying to do all these things, so here's the imposter syndrome coming in, and I'm like, I can't, if I wait, it's just never going to get done. And if somebody's going to hate on it, like, fine, like I'm at least doing it. You know what I mean? Like if you want to do it better, then go do it better.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of people that will never ever take that step. And again, that's why I give you all the credit in the world for taking that step. Because again, I listen to people talk about how they're building brands beyond a radio station, and how they're connecting with people in new ways that they haven't connected before, whether it's individuals in the business or whether it's listeners through Twitch or through all these new outlets that we have. They're really taking their own brand to heart. We used to do, like back in the day, it was like, I used to run a DJ business. And so you're on the come up and you're running your DJ business side by side. And, yes, they're separate entities, but yes, they're kind of together. And, you used, this platform that you had to leverage this one because you want that cool guy that from the radio to come DJ your wedding, and you'd come have fun. And we had so many different parties. That's just such a different game now, whether you want to be a DJ, Twitch, you want to sell merch. Like you could never sell merch back in the day. Like you can sell merch now, and it's easy. You don't even have to touch it. Like you just have to design it and send it off, and somebody can buy it at 2:00 in the morning, and you don't have to buy 40 of them and give them all to your family when they don't sell out. Like all these ways that we're able to kind of extend ourselves. I love the fact that you're giving people a platform to tell that story. And I'm going to keep telling you that over and over again till it sinks in, so that you don't think that you have imposter syndrome. What you've done in bringing this community together is so impactful. So when you look at the Radio Fam, moving forward, like I see you like in your country radio seminar, morning show boot camp, like you're getting involved in this in a deeper way. I love that.
I guess like some actual change, I guess that I think may actually happen. I think, it really in the beginning, it was kind of just an example thing of I again saw influencers doing what they were doing. So I thought, if I could build something that could be monetizable, but I was like kind of unsure because again, I didn't have a brand, I wasn't on the radio, but I was like, if I can just show people that I can sell like a couple posts, for like $50 or something like that, then hey, that's cool. Like if I can do that, then a radio person can get way more, for that and figure that out. And so now it's just kind of like, I still feel like I'm having to show that. And I want people, I guess, to use it now as an example, because as it kind of morphed, it's, I'm like learning too, it's kind of, you just figure things out as you go. I didn't go out building it to be like, oh, I'm going to make this helpful community. I'm going to make it, just kind of started to become that, and I realized what people like respond to and being like, oh, wow, this is like an actual need. I just thought it was a need for me in Denver. Like, I need to figure out what other people are doing at other stations and get inspired from that, because we're just kind of so yawn and sleepy here. And then realizing that other people need that too, even if it's something just from like, an air check or something, help other people that want to be better, because sometimes, you are just stuck in this hole and you don't have anybody, everybody around you's telling you, you're not good enough or whatever. but you are, and that's kind of, yeah, what I want to instill in people is the radio doesn't define you, your market size doesn't define you.
Like the market size thing is the most overrated argument that I see in Facebook groups and stuff like that. That just doesn't matter. Your quality of life matters. You want to be a big fish
Yes.
in a small pond, and extend your brand in all these different ways that you possibly can, and build the DJ business, or build the platform that allows you to go sell merch or go do the things that you do. Like I would also encourage anybody who watches or listens to this podcast to reach out. If you're shy and you're scared that somebody is like, oh, they're going to judge me, or they're going to have kind of that like, oh, imposter syndrome, like I work part-time in nowhere, Wyoming, like I can't talk to these people. Like reach out. You'll be surprised at how many people in this family will reach back to you. And again, you brought these people together in a way that makes it accessible, that we didn't have even 5 years ago. We didn't have
Yeah.
that kind of accessibility to people that have such diverse backgrounds that can help us. Kyle King helping us with Twitch, or Chris Cruz helping us with studio, or all these people that have pitched in and taught us, Carla Marine Anthony, on what they're doing on Twitch. Like there's so many great stories of things that you've been able to tap into and help people out. So you talk to all these people. Do you feel like there's radio talent out there?
Oh yeah, definitely. I think the problem is though is that those best ones sometimes are finding those spaces outside of radio, because either radio's not giving them chance, or they, are doing it somewhere, like Kyle on Twitch or something, and being like, this is starting to be a little bit more, lucrative than radio. So, or just especially the where I'm learning a lot of radio people, everybody's so creative and they want to do, and connect with people how they want to connect with people, and the radio puts them in such a box. So I think sometimes people, even though, they're not making maybe the same paycheck they were making at, their full-time job at a radio station, like some of these people are like, man, it's okay though. It's worth having the flexibility. That's kind of how I felt even as a part-timer, is that I had more flexibility and I could love radio and events more, again, because wasn't working there full time and having this, person tell me what to do. So there is good talent, but you have to invest in them too, or else they're all just going to keep finding their worth in other places.
It is really sad to think that somebody could go to Chipotle, make $15 an hour, learn how to make the guacamole, but then go on TikTok and make 50 grand teaching people how to make Chipotle guacamole. Like it is kind of the same thing applies to radio. Like they can do these things and do all these things that you want them to do as a part-time promotions assistant. And I remember some of these, like they were paying some of these people like $7-8 an hour, back in the day before they started, up in minimum wage. And then they would bring them, they would be there, they'd get burnt out, they'd do it a summer, and they'd be like, oh, peace out. And then they go on and do really great things. And you'd sit there and go, God, why aren't we harvesting that talent? They're like right here. Don't let them go. Like figure out a way to get them in, even if you got to put them somewhere else for a year until they get to the point that makes sense for the radio station. So it's good to hear that you think that there's talent out there, because I think when I look at it from a management standpoint, a consultant standpoint, like there's this constant conversation, and we've been having it for 10 years now. There's going to be a shortage of talent. That talent shortage is here. But again, I would just encourage talent to reach out, connect with this community, make sure you're connecting with the right people. And obviously, a lot of people, you can say like, hey, I know this person that wants to go here and do this and do that. I'm going to reach out to Kenny, or I'm going to reach out to somebody here or somebody there. Like all those people, so you're a great person to kind of be a conduit of that, running this radio fam thing.
Yeah, I tell people that a lot too, is to reach out and be in my face, because it's, I follow 8,000 people or however many it is, and so it's hard to keep track of everybody. So it's like, if you want me to notice you, just constantly, be in my face, and I try to help people out, where I can, trying to teach them to create things that they're passionate about. You see how many people start a project and then don't finish it, because it's hard to be consistent. I did that so many times before I got this one right,
Yeah, no, the habit, there's this thing with goals that everybody's like, my goal is to be top 5, 25, 54 by the end of the year. And then everybody feels good about the goal. And then you may check back and figure out what you're doing to get there. But a habit is never really formed to get to that point. Like nobody focuses on the habit and the consistency it takes to get there. Same like posting on TikTok. Like you got to post on TikTok every day if you want to be TikTok famous. And people post twice a week, and then they're like, why am I not famous? Why haven't I gone viral yet? Or they get to the end of the year and they're not top 5, 25, 54. And then they go, well, God, I got screwed by Nielsen, or they come up with something, Christmas, or whatever. And it's like, no, go back and look at the consistency of what you do day in and day out. And so again, I give you all the credit in the world. Like you do marketing and you do digital and you do all these things that we've been talking about that you're super good at. You do them for people that aren't in radio, and then you connect with all these radio people throughout the day, and then turn this side hustle into really kind of like a main hustle for you. You have like two main hustles right now. So it just, I would encourage everybody again to come back, use this, make sure that they connect with you, and make sure that they learn something from you, because you're learning from everybody else, whether you realize it or not. When you look at just radio in general, if you could tell them to do one thing better at this moment right now, what would that one thing be?
Probably the invest in talent, or else you're going to lose them. And I think that the invest in talent, that's kind of an overall, that's giving them camera equipment, you know what I mean? That's giving them, flexibility, if things like that, I think are investing in talent, I guess, in people in general. And it can just go such a long way, the loyalty that it gives you, the, fighting for them to keep their talent fees, instead of taking it because we need to make the bottom line, fight for them, you know what I mean? Or else again, they just see that you're not. Now, a lot of companies that aren't even media companies, a lot of them have podcasts now, or a YouTube channel or something like that. So they can go use all these talents. There's a lot of companies that need voices, and radio people know how to do all this stuff. So I don't think even a lot of talent themselves see, where they could be used.
You hit on something that honestly a lot of radio people are not very good at. Like, we are a brand. We have a brand. We market a brand day in and day out. Whether you're on the air, whether you're in promotions, in programming, whatever it is, you market a brand. But people don't think of that as being a brand. They just think of it as like this completely separate thing. And then they go, well, you can't work in marketing for my sneaker store because you've never done marketing before. What are you talking about? Like, we do public events, we do public speaking, we have a brand, we position a brand, we sell a brand. Like, we do all the things that you're doing with your sneakers and then some. So there's so many radio people that when they lose their jobs, they kind of lose their sense of self-worth. And they go, well, I'm not really good at anything, but you are. You're really good. You just hit on it. Like, you're good at so many different things that you haven't even thought it through. You can put 50 things on LinkedIn that you're good at.
Yeah.
And radio people will fill that 50 and could probably fill another 20 on top of that, especially if they know all the Excels and they know all the social stuff that goes into what we do in marketing. What's the thing in COVID that has changed your outlook just in life in general, and what you want to do and what you want to accomplish?
Learning how to create a business in general, because I just never, ever would have thought myself as a business person or owner or anything like that. And here I am.
Yeah, you are though. But you are, like, I think, like, you look at your story, you're like a kind of like a silent ninja. Like, you're just like fucking it up over here and making it happen. And it may not be.
I've been called a spark plug before, that I'm quiet.
Yes, that's perfect. Yeah. It's happening, and you don't know it's happening because you're not out there going, "Hey, everybody, look what I did." But you're doing it and you're making it happen. Like, I think all the way back, like, fill in the blanks for me on this story where you decided, like, hey, I need to figure out how to learn how to talk to guys in mechanic car talk. Like, that's ninja spark plug. I couldn't tell you a thing about a car to save my life. You figured out how to talk to, like, dudes, like mechanical dudes.
That came digitally too. It started, I don't know, when I was younger. I don't know why, but I was never like a man hater or anything like that. But I always never wanted to see myself as like a damsel in distress, I would always say. So I never wanted to be like stuck on the side of the road and like needing like a guy to like change my tire. You know what I mean? I was like, it just seems so easy and more efficient. Like, I don't want to wait for somebody to come change my tire when I could just do it myself. So it kind of like started as that. And then it was kind of like like my dad, knew how to work on cars and stuff like that. So it was like, okay, like, he taught me how to like change my oil and kind of like about certain parts of the car. During college, I got it, like, so I was like 18, 19. I got a job at an auto parts store. Score. So I was like, this is a win-win-win. I get to learn more about cars. I get a discount because you got like a nice employee discount, and I get to meet boys.
Patrick.
So you're just like around people, like learning what the parts are. The more I learned, the more I wanted to like do myself. So before Google and YouTube, if something would be wrong with my car, there was like forums. So I would go log into like, I've always had a Ford Ranger. So like I will log into like Ford Ranger forums and like be like, hey, this is going on with my car. What do you think it is? and like would network with people just on these forums, you know what I mean? And like share pictures. And I remember one time like them helping me like change like a brake light switch or something in my car. And just I think I started to get like, well, this is kind of cool that like I can do this and some boys can't. So then I was like, so I'd be out there with YouTube trying. I think one time I like flushed my radiator system and changed my my alternator.
See, I love the fact that you took it to the level that you did it yourself, because I was just waiting for you to say, one time I went to the oil change place and they came back and they're like, you need $2,200 worth of service. And then you could just look at them and be like, nope, 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 nope. Do that. And then I'm out.
I think that's what it was, is the radiator flush. I think one time I was just sitting in a car place and I saw however much the price was on the wall. So I was like, I wonder how much that would be if I just did it myself. So then I was like, wow, look how much it was. Ben too is about like saving money too. Like what could I do myself? There was other thing. I think I fixed my like heater or something a few years ago. And I loved going in being like, man, awesome. The mechanic says it would have cost me over $300 to do it, but it took me, less than $50 to get it.
That's a lot of Twitch subscriptions.
Exactly. So yeah, it all started digitally too.
When you look back at all the podcast episodes that you've done, do you see that personal branding piece is the one that comes back, and not in the way back in the day where it was like, oh my God, these call letters, KYGO, like Kenny J, KYGO is going to be my handle until they fire me. And then I got to figure out how to change this. And then I got to put my next radio station on there. No, it's like, be Kenny J Radio and be yourself and go where you're going to go. And then just build that wherever you build that. So is that kind of the running theme that you've seen the most in the podcast?
Yeah, I think that's the potential that I see in everyone. I don't know that everybody kind of sees that in themselves yet. And I don't know if it's just I think there's a very small handful that really get that. I think it's hard, I think, to kind of, because you're just like, well, wow, that's the big brand. Like, why would I get it attached to, Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, why would I want to separate myself from that? But I truly believe that the future of radio is going to be these individual shows, because that's how you're going to stand out. Now I think back in the day, it was like, let's say, I want to be on a morning show or whatever. So I'm going to keep trying to apply to these morning shows. I'm going to try to be a producer who's going to give me a job, and then I can work my way up. Now I tell people that if you're comfortable enough, you get a microphone, a laptop like I have. I was like, I'm not anything special here, and record a podcast. Whether you're, if you want to be on mornings, though, go find someone that you want to do mornings with, or that you at least want to try, and start building that show. Start just creating a show and get noticed. It's going to take you so much longer to do that kind of old school, intern, producer, and co-host, and work your way up. Just start it. Because if you're already doing this and monetizing it, and we're already learning that people can do that with their podcast, then you're going to get radio's attention, because you can already come out and say, hey, I already have an audience. I already have sponsors, clients. And that's going to be much more appealing as a radio station. And that's better for radio too, in general. The problem is, that's where radio's got to make sure that they, take care of those people. And, if I'm coming to you with this podcast I built, and then you fire me and now you get to keep it, hold on, so there's got to be, I think, some work with like in the contract and like the legal stuff.
Oh, I totally agree. And you look at digital now, they have to sell digital. Like, they have to sell digital, and they want to sell digital. And you being able to go as a brand to a salesperson and say, hey, look at, this is my digital suite. Like, let's talk about how we can do a stunt on Instagram that benefits the that turns into a canned food drive that, you can sponsor, and that a client can pitch in 10 grand when we hit 10,000 cans, or like all that stuff. All those old radio things that we used to do are all applicable to social media and digital media today. If you feel like you can't do that stuff on your own, or your radio station, it doesn't have the personnel to step out and do that stuff, do it yourself. And then let the radio station be on, let them tag into it, because they're going to want to be a part of that noise. And again, like, you're a person that, just to kind of have those what if riff conversations, like, hey, I'm thinking about this idea, like, talk to Marie about this stuff. Like, she's got so many brilliant ideas on this stuff that can help all of us. Yeah, I love when we start playing what if. You did some MacGyver stuff. Is there like was it something with a key card, or what was it? Something like you broke into the station?
Twice. Yeah.
just twice.
Yeah, just twice. So actually, they've both been here at Bonneville/Lincoln.
It was in Denver. Okay.
I happened to be hungover that day. I literally puke in the parking lot as I'm pulling. And I come in and realize that the station, the power had gone out or whatever. So like, our elevators and our key cards that open the doors aren't working. I honestly don't even know how I did it. Like, the front desk, you can access everything there. So there was a pair of scissors, and somehow I was able to take the scissors and get them behind the lock. And I was able, because the problem was is I could get all the equipment. I think I had a key downstairs to our equipment, but the key to our actual like station vehicle that had like the tent and all that stuff in it was on the other side. And I somehow got that open. I don't know how, but then it sucked because I had to walk up and down like 3 stories of stairs with like hungover and pouring sweat with like, you know, the tent and everything. And it was awful, but I made it. And then more recently too, the radio station, you usually have the ones around your neck with the lanyard, the keys are on it. So I went to shut the door. And right when I did that, it got stuck and the keys went inside and fell on the floor. And it was like one of those old white vans. And it was at our sports station. And I was like, what the fuck? Oh my God. Like trying to, and so somehow like I found somebody in their car had like the wire hanger. And then we had string, or I had string in my backpack. So I like made something, and I was able to basically like use this tool I made to tie it around the lock and pull the lock open. And so I spent the entire remote basically doing that and got it open.
Again, this is why you get in touch with Marie and you hang out, because awesome people, keeps great company, MacGyver shit, you know, car stories, great, you know, brainstorming, like all of the above.
It's like a dating profile.
You didn't realize people could be swiping left in this podcast.
Is that the good way or is it right? See, I don't know.
No, it's swipe right. It is swipe right.
Okay.
No, they're swiping the good way, and they've been swiping the good way on the Radio Fam because of what you've been building for a while now. And I hope, you know, again, how can we help the Radio Fam? What can we do? What can we buy? What's good in the Radio Fam right now? Pimp it.
Well, anything. I mean, I always love when people check out my stuff and buy it. Honestly, it is. I didn't realize I'd have fun kind of like designing some of the things that I do, even though some of them are pretty simple. It's cool to see your ideas come to life and people actually like them and buy them. So yeah, at theradiofam.com, definitely check out all my merch, especially the old vintage stuff. If you're into like vintage or old radios, I have such unique stuff in there that's always changing. And then just in general, how to help, just don't be an asshole. Just be a good person. If you're in radio and you're just like one of those shitty people, like, there's not enough spaces right now, and there's enough good people to fill them. So like help people. Like, I think that's just kind of the overall thing, because if you're that person, like we're the good ones we're taking over now. So watch out. And
I'm glad you are. It's long overdue. And we're glad that you're leading the way on the good people taking over.
Appreciate people like you that notice, without me saying, Hey, Kenny, did you see my podcast? What do you think of it? And that you just came out to me. And I think that's so cool.
Glad we got a chance to talk about your story. Cause again, you're giving radio people such a great forum to talk and tell their stories. And you're so worried and conscious about people's time and going, okay, I could make this an hour, but I cut all myself out of it and I just let them talk and do their thing. Like, I'm going to encourage more Marie. I'm going to air check you right now. I'm going to encourage more Marie in the podcast down the line, because you have a lot of value to give this business. You already have and will continue to for a long, long time. And again, I'm glad that we crossed paths. And
so I don't know how to end this. I don't typically end it a certain way.
It's like, it is kind of awkward when you try to end a podcast. You're like, okay, I think I'm done, but am I done? Does the person know I'm done? Do I have to give them some kind of clue? How about like, subscribe, share, leave a comment? Helps us all boost the Radio Fam post. Make sure you follow on all the socials at the Radio Fam. I'm going to say it for you because you don't say it for yourself enough, and we love you for it. Thanks, Marie.